Brad Kugler, how you doing, man?
Awesome, Alan. Great to see you again.
All right, I see this is the home office away from the office going on back here.
Yeah, I actually have been working in my office since the beginning of COVID, and
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I had to come home and change shirts so I can look presentable.
Right, but it looks like maybe this is the home office, but it looks like you could start a startup in your home office. You've got desk space. You've got desk space for it.
I got a great big office off the bedroom here, and there's 4 stations. There's one next to me and 2 behind me. And my wife has that side, and I have this side. So, but you're right. I could have a 4-person company in here, no problem.
Who's got a 4 or 5 workstation home office? I don't know. This is great, man. Only somebody who's like in the startup game that had a pretty good run, which you did, and we're going to get into. You're on your second run now, the first run paid for all this, and now the second run is going to pay for the big yacht and stuff that'll come later. Well, man, it's always fun to talk with you. We're here in Tampa Bay, Florida. You and I, we've got a funny story actually. We've known each other pushing 20 years, 18,
2001, 2002 ish.
Yeah. Maybe 02, 03, somewhere in there. And it's a funny story because I worked for a small custom software development company, actually founded by ex-Microsoft employees, really cool boutique firm that I was fascinated with. As you know, Paul was one of the youngest programmers ever hired at Microsoft. He was already retired. When I met him, he was retiring from Microsoft at 26 years old or 27. I think he started at 16 and retired at 26 or 17 and 27. It was ridiculous. And I was so fascinated with him, as I know you were. And by the way, I reconnected with him recently, and when I was in Seattle, because I visited Seattle. But and he had a partner in Uri, and they had a really cool little custom software development team, and we were working on the coolest stuff, man. Right, the coolest stuff, and we were always looking for new development projects. And you were friends with Uri, and he said, "Hey, go see my friend Brad, because you're about the same age." He's like, "Go see Brad. He and his family have a business over across town and it's a movie rental distributor, wholesale distributor business, and go see what's going on with his technology, see if we can help, see if we can build something for him." Yeah. And I walked in, and I was a lot younger, and we were so small that sometimes I was doing sales calls, sometimes I was managing projects, and this day I was like making a sales call, right? And I walked in your office, and we sat down, and you were pretty tough, man. I remember this. I was intimidated by you, I'll be honest. I was like, but you were kind of a grizzled business person at that point. You were beyond your years. You've been running this business. So even though you were young, it's no surprise you were tough.
Yeah, I was 12 years in at that point already. So I was well-rounded, you might say.
Yeah, and do you remember the meeting? And you remember being tough on me? Do you remember?
I do, and I figured, because it's hard to negotiate with your friends Uri. He and I figured he was sending you as sort of a pre-negotiator, and I'd call up Uri, and he says, "I'll just talk to Alan." I'm like, dude, let's just work this deal out, and he didn't want to get involved, and he really wanted you to do it. And I'm like, all right.
Isn't that something, right? Like, yeah, exactly. So I was kind of going to be the punching bag, really, between the two. And I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know why. That was why you were being so tough on me. But we had a good meeting, and, and you were running your family business, which, a lot of folks can remember, obviously, the success of Blockbuster and the VHS recording, and the massive industry of VHS movie recording, and then it transitioned to DVD. But like a 20+ year run of physical media movies, and you had these contracts with libraries and schools, if I remember right.
Yeah, the business started. My dad bought it in 88, 89, just as I was getting out of school, and he kind of encouraged me to come out from Los Angeles. I had a marketing job to come in and run the company, because honestly, it was the recession, the 90-91 recession. And he was like, I remember his comment to me. He's like, look, you can only be a hero. This business is failing. If it fails, no problem. You did your best. And if you revive it, it's all you, baby. You know, so you can only be a hero.
Was this the VHS? Was this the VHS DVD transition window that we're talking about?
Yeah, it was that. It was called distribution video and audio. So it was VHS. We mainly sold to Blockbuster stores, and as they were opening in mass in the late 80s, early 90s, they were using us, not exclusively, but we were finding the inventory and selling them to their franchisees. And that was the biggest part of the business. Now that business pivoted and evolved over the next 2.5 decades, but that was what it was at that point.
So you were like a wholesaler for these things, and do I remember libraries and schools were also?
So libraries and schools came into play about 7 or 8 years later, about 98. So we had been selling, we were getting all this stuff in, and we noticed the margins were much higher selling to libraries and schools who had them inside their facilities. And so we started growing that division. And hence the conversation with you is we wanted to build an e-commerce website that was driven by POs rather than credit card swipes, because they pay by PO, and that's what you guys did for us.
So business was booming, and I think business was booming, and you, I mean, how much square footage? I think you had up to 50 employees. How much square footage?
At the peak, when I came into the business was doing about 2 million, and had 12, 14 employees. And at our peak, and I'm going to say our peak was 2012. We got up to 25 million and about 55 employees. Right.
And just killing it. And then pretty soon then it became all DVDs and so forth. And we're going to get into that story and how it, I hate to say how it ended, but there was definitely some challenges. It's going to be a little foreshadowing there. But that piece of technology we built for you, it held up, right?
We used it until we closed the business in 2016. So
crazy. That's crazy. That just warms my heart to know that something I sold you, held up.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Okay. So we want to get into that story, but I have a little slide deck. I like to do a surprise question on my guests. And so this kind of is a kind of a big question, right? Right? So can something old be made new again, right? Like this idea of, you went through this VHS, DVD, and of course, that went to streaming. So something old became new again, right? And then you're kind of doing it again, man. You're taking, you're taking direct mail and making it new again, right? I see this pattern, which to me seems pretty brilliant. So you kind of believe in this. I think this probably hits a couple other things in your business career, I'm guessing.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, I was disrupted when the transition from VHS to DVD was a no-brainer. Our business grew through that. It was a natural progression. However, when it went from DVD to streaming, that there was no ease of entry or transition. I knew I was a dinosaur, and despite several tries, we weren't going to be able to bridge that gap as a company. It was well beyond our comfort zone and our wheelhouse. So when I started or got into direct mail 2.0, my number one thing on another business is I was not going to be disrupted again. I was going to be the disruptor. So I was going to have the technology that revolutionize an existing industry. Rather than it being done to me, I was going to do it to it next time. So
right, exactly. But also this idea that direct mail, that somehow we could make that smarter from a technology perspective, is really pretty revolutionary behind the scenes, right? Like what you're able to do. Talk about that briefly, about like how direct mail 2.0 works fundamentally.
So obviously everybody has gone to their mailbox and gotten an advertisement or a letter asking for some type of engagement or action. So that piece of ink on paper has been around for 150, 200 years. And with the advent of digital technology and all these mediums, how can you leverage that tried and true with the new to get an even better level of engagement. So we have taken 7 technologies, and the way they're timed and how they're done synergistically and simultaneously with a piece of mail, we've shown a lift of direct mail almost consistently by at least 23 to 46%. So if you're doing ink on paper, you get a certain result. Usually it's a 1% response rate. Now, it may not sound like much, but when you add our technology to that campaign, you're getting a 1.25 to a 1.5% response rate. That's a huge lift when you're talking about from a 1% to a 1.5%. That's almost a 50% growth.
Right, right.
We do that for about a 10% increase in cost.
Right. And so you were telling me that, I mean, in the last since you guys started, you took over the business, and it had, we're going to get into this more specifically, but you've just had tremendous growth since you took this thing over. It was making low 6 figures, and now we're into a few $1 million and climbing every quarter. And do you think it's what do you attribute that growth you've had for the last couple of years to? Just a really great sales and marketing team. The technology was already great. Do you feel like it's your sales and marketing, or do you feel like that the economy or the world has come your way? What do you think?
It's very rarely one thing. It's a combination of everything you said. We've improved the technology over the last 3 years. We've tightened up our sales and marketing efforts to focus on what works, and our internal processes have also tightened up. And on top of that, you have a demand in the market. Guys that are still doing just ink on paper, direct mail, they're at a disadvantage, and they're searching for something that's a little more technologically advanced. And really, there's maybe 2 or 3 players in our wheelhouse. None of them are an apples to apples to what we are. We are by far the leader in this niche, and so much so that I've already been approached to be bought out by my 2 competitors. So,
yeah, and that's always a good sign. What's the kind of key differentiator, would you say, with Direct Mail 2.0 versus kind of the other stuff out there?
Well, for one, there's not that much other stuff that does what we do.
Okay.
For 2, it's a simple value proposition, and I'll equate it to, say, an investment. If I could show you an investment that's going to improve your ROI by 23 to 46%, but it's only about a 15, maybe 10% increase in cost, are you going to do it?
Yeah.
It falls into no-brainer. So you go, yeah. And it's.
But I'm curious, I mean, if I were using this, I hate to ask for a feature function question, but what are just is it just a quicker, am I able to get my campaigns up faster, or am I able to measure results easier?
Measure results easier, track engagement, recover leads or engagement that you wouldn't be able to cover. And I'll give you an example. Let's say somebody calls and you send out 10,000 postcards that have your phone number and your website on it. 5 people call it. Receptionist boggles the call. Nobody's checking the website. The website doesn't convert. Those are lost engagement. You have no way to recover those interest seekers. With our product, the caller information is memorialized and recorded forever with all the demographics of that caller. The website traffic is tracked anonymously. So even if the person didn't convert or engage with the website, we're able to get the residential address of that engager without breaking any privacy or security laws. And then we can match that back to the address the mailing was sent for true mail attribution. And even anonymous visitors that come through Google or PPC actions, we can give you those addresses, which you can then remail to. It's called direct mail retargeting, so that you have a chance to re-engage those failed engagement opportunities.
Wow, that's pretty. I never heard that, direct mail retargeting. Wow, that's pretty.
That's the new buzzword in the direct mail industry.
That's pretty innovative. Yeah.
It's one of our premier products.
You know what's funny? I mean, I know you hear this all the time, but I got to say it. we all look at our direct mail, and frankly, it's gotten lessened over the last 5+ years, for obvious reasons, for cost. But so now the little bit that you get, you look at it,
Yes.
and
that's our key selling point is how many emails do you get? You probably get 200 a day.
So bad. It's so bad. It's just horrible. I've got rules set up that just to file. I don't even see half of it. It's just terrible.
And exactly. And how many pieces of mail are in your mailbox? 5, 6?
Yeah,
maybe?
5 or 6, right?
You look at every one of them,
You do. Yeah.
So you have a better chance, much better chance of creating an engagement or a conversion from a piece of mail than you do of an email or a banner ad or even anything.
No
and the
doubt.
theory behind us is we combine that direct mail with those other things so that you get multiple impressions with the same message, same creative, and you're more likely to engage.
Well, man, that's what I mean by taking something old and making it new again, and really, that's great. We'll take a quick break. We're going to do the Secure Startup sponsor, right? So this is our sponsor for the episode, Secure Startup. So this is a online one-stop place for all the documents that you would want to manage between a startup founder and an investor, right? So Brad, pay attention, because I know you need this, right? Because you. Actually, I don't know that you're raising money last time we talked, but you've always got investors circling, right? So when and if you need to, this will be what you'll want to use, Secure Startup, and it just manages that whole process of document flow and sign-offs and confidentiality, and it's one of the few products out there that really focuses on that particular need. So let's jump back to the backstory, Brad, a little bit. Okay, so. Where'd you grow up again? I want to say Chicago, but I'm trying to remember.
You're spot on. I mean, you're probably old enough. I don't know if your viewers are, but everybody remembers those John Hughes movies from the 80s, Weird Science, Risky Business.
Man, Weird Science still makes me smile just when I think about that movie. It's just one of those movies that got me good.
Those were all filmed in my hometown. So we were the typical upper middle class suburban neighborhood where even Home Alone was filmed in our town. So pretty
those movie set roads, movie set
trees,
homes.
brick homes. Yeah.
Well, how did you? What did your dad and your parents? Your parents must have done pretty well. What was their living?
So basically, it actually goes back to my great grandfather, who came to the U.S. I think it was in 1913, I'm going to say. And he started a window washing company in Chicago.
Here we go with these immigrant entrepreneurs. I did a whole episode on immigrant entrepreneurs. You don't ever bet against them.
No, it's do or die.
It's do or die. Don't bet against that guy or that gal. Mm-mm.
So they started a company in 1920 called Millard Maintenance, which then passed on to my grandfather, which then passed on to my father. And it was going to pass on to me, I think. But my father and my grandfather didn't get along. My father was a bit of a maverick. And around the mid-'80s, my father decided he wanted to be a screenwriter. He's making good money. He didn't have a need.
Where was he making big money? In the family business?
Yeah. He was in the family business. My grandfather was still working. He was probably 5-6 years away from retirement, but my dad couldn't wait it out. And my dad had asked me, I have to say, I did one of those come to work days. It was a large janitorial company, 4,000 employees. And he brought me to work one day, and I think it was like senior or junior in high school, because I was like, what do you do all day? And I went to work and I'm like, man, this is boring. I didn't take into account the mid 6-figure salary he's making and the gorgeous wife he had. I just was like, this is boring.
You didn't know any of that would be important one day.
No. It was like, what do you,
forget this stuff.
Yeah. But anyway, so he's like, okay, you're out. Well, I'm not into this either. So I'm going to get myself bought out. And he did. That's where he actually got the money to start or purchase the called the VHS company at that time. He did a few other little dabbles in between, and honestly, they failed.
Yeah.
But that was the genesis of it. I worked at the company a few summers.
The VHS company didn't fail. I mean,
No.
that didn't fail. That thing.
Well, eventually it did.
I know, but it cooked for a long time.
27 years, so I can't consider that a failed entrepreneurial event.
No. So he bought that here
in Florida.
And wait a minute, what is that little town that it's in? I'm sorry, near the railroad.
Clearwater?
No, but the little town that the actual company's in at the end of Tampa Road. Like what's that little where the?
That was DVA. I mean, we moved there, but it's
yeah. But what was that? What's that little? Why am I drawing blank? It's right down the road from me. It's near Honeymoon Island. It's the.
You mean the name of the company that's in there now?
The little city, the little township, the township.
Ozona.
Thank you, Ozona, Ozona. Really cool little, amazing little cluster of old homes and oak trees, and nobody would have guessed it's a little, little town near Tampa, Florida, right? Yeah. With little bars and stuff, and that's where I met you when I came to visit. Was that office, right?
Right.
Ozona, right? And so he bought the business. The business was already there in Ozona?
No way. The business was in a rented warehouse near downtown Clearwater.
Okay.
And it was him and a couple of partners. They bought the business for, I can tell you, for $300,000 in 1988. The business was doing about $1.5 million. And it was,
I'm going to guess it was $1.5 million purchase. Yeah, that's what I would have.
They bought
one-time revenue. I bet he bought it for one-time revenue. No, it was $1.5 million, you said? Okay.
He bought it for, I think it was 2 times earnings. So the 3 partners came up with $300,000. They bought the business that was doing $1.5 million in sales. And that was in 1988. And, pretty good deal, I think, pretty good deal. And they were running it, as I said, until the 90-91 recession. And partners all ran for the hills. My dad was left with the business, and he did not see the light at the end of the tunnel. He saw an oncoming train. And that's when he called me up from my little marketing job in LA after I got out of school and said, you want to do this thing? I'm going to go and get my insurance license and sell insurance.
Wow. Okay.
He said, it's still my business. You're going to pay me. I think it seemed like a lot at the time. This is still it was $2,000 a week. I'm going to get another job, but you're going to pay me $2,000 a week.
You're like, okay, I'm just a kid, but okay.
Okay. All right. Well, all right. And you're going to come and you're going to make $500 a week and you're going to run the business.
You're going to do all the work.
Yeah. And at that point, I'm like, well, that's $100 more than I'm making in my job in Los Angeles. All right. Yeah. And I get free rent. I can live at home. And my dad said, I'll give you a car. And I said, all right, good. Done deal. And
that's value-based pricing is what that is.
Yeah. Yeah. And he did a trimming of did a big bunch of layoffs and all sorts of clean house before he departed. He was there with me for several months before he departed the scene. And I brought my brothers in, and I said, all right, let's do this. We inch back, it took a while, pivot some things. And I think it was actually in the late, it was right after you, 2004, 2005, we were doing really well. My dad's like, I'm coming back. But I'm getting $4 a week now,
Of course.
I'm like, wait, okay, I have to give myself a raise,
Oh my gosh!
Nice job. I'm taking my business.
He played the dad card on you like twice on the way out and the way he tried to come back.
Oh, it gets better. And then he wanted to do something else, and this was 2008. Oh, he decided to be a property developer, and he's like, okay, I'm going to leave again. And I said, wait a minute, Dad, I'm a little older and wiser now. You can leave, but the money we pay you is a buyout. It's not a hold my seat warm for
not a dividend.
So he agreed, and
oh my God.
We ended up paying him $1.8 million over the next 8 years.
Yeah.
He did great.
Yeah, your dad deserved that, and he taught you a few things by example.
No, exactly. And you know what? He's my closest ally, my biggest confidant, and he's doing other things now. But that sort of brought us up to. I mean, I don't know how much you want to hear of the pivot.
Yeah, no, I'm just curious. So, okay, so by the mid 2000, I met you in 2002ish, and then 05 you bought your dad out basically, so he stopped coming and going. And then this is VHS. This is probably when the DVD transition was starting, I'm guessing.
DVD transition started in 98.
Okay, but it got in full swing by early mid 2000s.
Yeah, it was funny because 97, the first DVDs came out. Wizard of Oz was the first DVD ever released.
Really?
Yeah, I remember it because I had an eBay account I was messing around with, and I thought, you know what? We ended up getting a couple cases of Wizard of Oz DVD. So I said, let me put these on eBay and see what happens. And I tell you, I didn't remember to put a quantity. I just said I got them, and you can whatever. The DVDs actually sold out. I think I sold 30 of them in about 30 seconds.
Wow.
And there might be something to this, I was like, whoa, okay. So that's when I started transitioning the business to DVD and online sales.
Got it. It's like a portal, as in when you say online sales, you mean you can buy on my website now. That's what you mean.
Well, I didn't have a website. Okay. So,
right.
But at that point eBay was it,
Oh, okay.
Very few people invested in building big, enterprise class e-commerce sites in 1997. It was Amazon and 2 or 3 other players, really.
Speaking of Amazon, I remember that you shared with me, I think this is right, that at one point you were the #1 DVD seller on Amazon.
Yes, for quite, I think, a couple of years. So when I became a big seller on eBay, I got a call from, I remember his name was Barnaby Jones, who's now a very senior person at Amazon, and said, listen, we're opening this thing called Z Shops, Amazon Auctions. And what you're doing on eBay, we want you to do it for us. And I'll tell you what, if you come and start selling your stuff on Amazon Auctions, we're going to give you no fees, for 90 days or whatever. Oh, okay, great. Let's do it. Worked out great. And Amazon Auctions transitioned to something called Z Shops, which transitioned to what is now called Amazon Marketplace. And for, I think, a year or two, we were definitely a top 5 seller on Amazon. And then very quickly word spread and they opened it up to everybody. And it got much more competitive to the point where if something's so crowded and I can't make margin on it, I'd rather not do it. And
so you had you had just already so much volume and distribution. It was easy for you to, like, when you were able to get that #1 status on DVD sales at Amazon because you just had so much momentum already behind you as a business. Yeah. You had such a footprint.
There was very little competition at that point. If there were a couple hundred vendors back in 98, 99, 2000, that was a lot.
So let's talk about one of my other favorite stories. I can vaguely remember you telling me a couple years ago. There's a certain meetup you had in Seattle or somewhere. You went up to visit Amazon.
Yeah.
Maybe was it on their request, or did you just go up there and start knocking on doors?
No. They had so the guys that were the big sellers on Amazon, they actually called us we were a user group. They called us to a meeting. This is when they were rolling out FBA, Fulfillment by Amazon. And they really wanted to pitch us to put our stuff in their warehouse, use their infrastructure and fulfillment. And, at first I got to say, I was like, so they can charge us rent, great. I'm already giving them 25% of my commission for my sale. And now they want us to put our stuff in their warehouse, hold our inventory, and charge me rent. It was a big F you. I am so not interested. It was very early in the stage, and they put us in front of a whole group of Amazon execs, and I think it was almost a focus group. And I got up to go to the bathroom, as they're pitching us to pay them rent in my eyes,
Yeah.
As time went on, it was more to ensure that the same level of service could be delivered for us resellers, because we were slow and missed ships and all. We didn't know what we were doing. So I understand the logic now, and it was really smart. So I go into the bathroom and doing my thing, and standing next to me in the urinal is Mr. Jeff Bezos. And he was behind the glass, I guess, listening to our focus group, and we had a chuckle about it. And he was very polite and thanked us for coming, and it's a fun little story.
So,
you know?
so that was the first and only time you met Jeff Bezos, though. I think
No, I met him, and then we started going back every year. And then as this thing got bigger, he would come and talk to our group. And our group was only maybe 30, 40 people. But, you know.
You guys were the heavy hitters in the space.
Yeah, we were. I mean, the resellers were starting to become a significant portion of their revenue, and they wanted to nurture these third-party sellers. I don't know so much nurture us, but understand how to improve and grow that part of the business. It's easier for them because it's just a commission, and you know, it's more profitable, especially when they're charging us to ship our own stuff. You know, so.
Was the Jeff Bezos the other couple encounters you had, were they just kind of more just brief encounters? Were there any other good stories there?
No. But he was very cordial, and this was so long ago. He still had a little hair at that point.
Yeah. I remember that early Bezos look. Yeah,
and it's really great because in their conference room, it was an old hospital in Seattle, and they had this giant whiteboard, which I'm sure has now been memorialized, where they would have all of their milestones from 94, and someone wrote their first sale, and then it was literally 40, 50, 60 feet long, and it was all signed by everybody, and they still had that in their conference room. And I'm sure it's probably in a museum somewhere, you know?
Wow, really? Anything else anything else come to mind when you think about those Amazon visits? That, you know, that's a great story there, the whiteboard, or the endless whiteboard, that's a great one. Anything else jump out that is memorable about Amazon? Because those are early days for Amazon. Not many people, you know, got that kind of access.
Yeah, it was interesting. I'll tell you one of the takeaways I got. So these were a lot of maverick reseller, home-based business guys, and we'd get invited into Amazon's house, and they'd serve us drinks and lunch, and literally their top 5 exec structure would sit there, even Jeff Bezos for 1 or 2 of the years. And you get these, I remember being embarrassed that some of these guys were just so rude and so accusatory of Jeff Bezos as being the devil, and so much so that I stood up, I said, do you see the opportunity we've gotten here? You know, this is not a perfect world, but we've been given a business that didn't exist 5 years ago. And we've got some of these guys yelling at Jeff and yelling at these other execs, and they're sitting there taking it. And I would have been like, if it was my house, I'd be like, who are you? You
get that.
Nothing if it was not for us, you know? And I just remember being
so patient.
It exposed me to, I think, some of the underbelly of the less professional side of some entrepreneurs, whether it's an entitlement or just a rudeness, you know, and not looking at what that opportunity has given us from Amazon, you know?
But it would have been hard to see then. Like you said, even you in your own mind were skeptical, but you showed respect.
Exactly. And it really comes down to respect, you know?
Yeah. And appreciation. I mean, they probably, I guess they paid your way out there and all that good stuff. So, I mean, you know.
No, they didn't. We were actually having a conference, and then they invited us. It was a conference in Seattle, and they invited us to their headquarters in their big conference room on the top floor. I mean, you know, they weren't small potatoes in the late 90s, early 2000s, you know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, no doubt. No, that's awesome, man. Not many people, you know, had that experience. You've got to really cherish those, I think, from a startup world, you know, with the world we live in. Those are there's only, you know, you can count on one hand how many of these Amazon kind of origin stories are out there. And so, okay, so you're riding high, and like big time high. Like you got in the company. This is now we're in the late thousands, if you will. And the company's making, I would imagine, making tons of money, because now it's just DVDs. Just once you get these distribution channels flowing, you got to be making a lot of money personally and also the company, right?
Honestly, it was really nice there. I mean, from late 90s until 2012, I I had the freedom where I didn't have to show up every day. It was just a money machine. That machine everybody wants to create as an entrepreneur, so you don't have to do the grind. I had it. And I had
it would go whether you showed up for work or not. It was going. That thing was gonna make money every day.
Exactly. It didn't really matter. You know, it was almost the money was being made, honestly, in spite of me. You know, and it allowed me to travel. I would travel with NGOs as a semi-professional photographer to war zones and you know, disasters, and it was fantastic. And until my wife decided that it was too dangerous.
Well, I want to get into this. I want to get into this because there's a lot of young entrepreneurs out here that actually, you know, I focus a lot on the struggles and difficulties, and even to the story to this point, you know, and after. But this is a moment that I want you to take some time and talk about how sweet it was, because this is what you're about to describe is kind of what all of us, you know, all the aspiring entrepreneurs are fighting for and hoping for, that they can, you know, have, you know, tons of cash flow, travel, pursue hobbies like photography, and just live an amazing life. And you did it for like a decade, like 10 years plus. Describe, I mean, you probably bought a big house, you probably had a boat, your cars, like just let's kind of just bathe in how awesome this was a little bit.
It really was, and it really was awesome. And you know, you don't feel like going to work. And it wasn't one of these jobs where, well, it's an e-commerce job and I can work from anywhere. It was, I didn't have to work if I didn't want to work.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah.
I obviously wanted to check on with my employees, but I would get a call. I was into the photography thing. Yeah, I think everybody remembers the big, horrible 2010 earthquake in Haiti, right? And I got a call to be able to jump on a plane with John Travolta, fly down there, document it, go around with him. And, you know, if I had a 9-to-5, I couldn't just disappear like that, you know, but I was afforded the opportunity to do something like that. And it was just that's
what was the nicest, hold on, what was the nicest car you had at that time?
I was into BMW M3s. I had a string of them in a row, you know. That was my thing. It wasn't over the top.
Yeah.
That was my go-to car.
Yeah.
And I had a Jeep too. So I had two cars, which was really nice, you know. And I remember my wife even kind of making fun of me, like, who has two cars? That's ridiculous.
We do, man. I do.
Yeah.
Now, but, did you get to buy like your dream home, so to speak?
I mean, at the time it was, but I could say that I bought a really nice house in 2000. And then in 2008, still in this decade of, I wouldn't say opulence, but I was able to completely renovate it and redo it from the top down. You know, I added an entire floor to it. I mean, expensive renovation stuff, not just paint and
like six-figure renovation stuff we're talking.
I paid more for the renovations than I paid for the house.
Yes. What other kind of cool? I apologize for asking, but it's fun to indulge in this stuff, and I know some of it's like sometimes I know you're going to say, "Wow, I wish if I could go back, I would have saved more," and those kind of things. But it is kind of fun to indulge a little bit and remember that, and that is so. Like what else? Like what else was some of the coolest stuff that only somebody who was making the kind of money you were making was able to do?
I can tell you that two things happened. I think it was 2011, which was our best year. I remember getting a bonus check at the end of the year for $110,000. I mean, that's on top of the salary I made all year. It's just one check, you know, and that's good money. And that's kind of stuff that that's real money. Yeah. And I ended up buying a second home on the water, which was really nice. That's not something everybody can do. The other thing is I took my family on a Mediterranean cruise. It was $30,000. This is 2011 or 10.
Yeah, that's 50 grand a day. It's probably 50,000 a day. Who knows?
And you know, we did what's called, they don't have something called first class on cruises, but some lines have something called concierge class. It's a separate part of the ship. You have a butler. I mean, it was an extravagance, and I don't regret those things. I had the money to do it with. If someone would have said, "Hey, 2 years from now, your business is going to be failing, better think twice," I probably wouldn't have done it.
Right.
But, you know, you get to a point where the money's coming in spite of you, and you I'm not saying you get a little bit of a God complex. You're like, what, I can figure out anything.
There's nothing I can't pay cash. There's nothing I can't pay cash for. There's nothing I can't do.
Oh, if something goes wrong, I'll fix it. No problem. I'm
Yeah. The bank account's fat, and there's two parts of the story I love about. First of all, it's fun to indulge in it because I think it's nothing to be ashamed of, course, and it's something that we all strive for. Like we want it, like we all want to like enjoy that. Like, so I love celebrating that stuff, honestly. And I'm sure you were generous with it in different ways, in your own way, with your church and things like that.
Staff in 2012, I took the entire company on a 5-day cruise. And their significant others, so it was
their significant others, yeah.
So did
you do other things crazy? Like, sometimes when you're flush like that, you're gift giving, and you just it's kind of fun to like make somebody's day or make somebody's.
Well, I remember the Christmas, one of those years where we were, I remember my accountant saying to us, one of those years, said, "Congratulations and welcome to the top 1% of earners in the world, in America, top 0.1% earners in the world." And I was like, wow, really? Yeah,
That's awesome. Yeah. And you took care of your people, I'm sure, and
paid my taxes, no debts. I mean, it was nice, money in the bank. And it was definitely, and it built, and I say 2012 was the peak of it.
Yeah.
And, in 2013, things started to.
So a storm started brewing.
Yeah.
Dark clouds started forming in the distance.
Yes. We had a flat year in 2012. We duplicated what we did in 2011. But, we were fat cats. We gave ourselves raises. We wrote each other checks for $100 and some grand each, all said and good. But when we were flat for the first time in a decade, you kind of go, uh-oh. And that's when, we're like, okay, well, we'll fix it. We've had bad months and bad quarters, but we'll fix it. So 2013 comes along. Bank balances are dropping. Our bank, has our line of credit, is lowering our line. Things are starting to get a little creaky. We're obviously second guessing everything we spend, and we had dropped a good 15, 20%.
What's the root cause at that moment? You had a sense of what the root cause was.
It's coming in. We've got the advent of streaming now. It's starting to impact our business. Okay, 2013 was the first noticeable year. Netflix streaming had been around for a year or two. Apple was selling movies. The number of outlets that were offering DVDs, video stores were going out of business in droves. Mass merchant type shops like Circuit City was going out of business. Best Buy was reducing square footage for pre-recorded media. It was a war on all fronts. So not to mention was the volume less, but our transactional, our per piece transaction was dropping too, because it was a price war to stay alive and keep revenue coming in. Not to mention we had bad debt coming in from guys going out of business. late 2013, we got sued by a public company because we were a liquidator. So there was a large video chain in Colorado called Ultimate Video who was going out of business. We bought their inventory for cash. We had them sign all the documents that said, hey, this is your inventory to sell. It was liened by a public company called RentTrack. And, it's a debtor in possession law where that debt transferred to us. And
so they didn't disclose it. They didn't disclose it to you.
No, what happened? It was a sneaky deal, but the guy signed the hold harmless and disclosure personally, or I'm sorry, as a business, not personally. So the business was defunct. So that business signature held no water. So the big public company was able to go right through them to us And they decided to go after us personally, after the company. And the lawsuit started as a $2.8 million suit, and I'm like, oh my gosh. And I knew the law enough because I've been in this business and I knew the deep pockets of the company. We weren't getting out of this. This was going to be a problem,
Now,
so
they wanted to sue. Weren't they just kind of suing you for what you paid for it? Or was it going to be a lot more than what you paid for it?
Yeah, because the claim was I underpaid. So they wanted the full value. So I'm a liquidator. So if I bought it for 5 cents on the dollar and it really should have been worth at least 80 cents, they wanted the 80 cents on the dollar for me.
Oh man.
No kidding. It was it was like 8 times.
So all of a sudden your world is changing, not just the business, but I would imagine personally at some point, personal stress levels, sleep issues. I'm just going to take some guesses here, like health, just all of a sudden things are going on.
I have to say from 2013 at the start of it, and I knew when it happened, we were supposed to take we were taking a trip to Aspen for spring break.
The old lifestyle was still hanging on.
It was already planned, yeah. And we were out there, and I remember we went home early because, I'm getting calls from the office, this and this, and, this guy's not paying us, and that deal fell through. And I'm like, I can't enjoy myself. I'm going home. You guys can stay.
You got the kids, the wife and the kids.
Yeah.
Right.
And, I remember that going, wow, this is reality setting in. And I bury myself in spreadsheets, and I'm just not seeing a way out of this thing. We've got SBA loans, and we got massive balances on credit cards, and so in April of 13, we went down. I think we were already down a little bit from attrition, from 40 people to like 27. It was just a mass layoff, and my brother and I started not getting along. He said, okay, we're good now, right? And I'm like, maybe for a little while, but this is not, everything's okay. And his job was sales. My job was the operations and finance and, all the nuts and bolts. And then I suggested that we take a pay cut. He looked at me like I had 3 heads. What? You take a pay cut. I'm the one selling.
You need me.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, if you can't pay me, I'll just leave. And I'm like,
he knows that kills you.
Yeah. And I'm like, all right, I got to pay him. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to unilaterally take less. And I knew we had a limited runway. And I'm like, so if we have a limited runway, I'm going to give it to him and I'm going to be stuck with nothing? Or do we just both liquidate the company to ourselves? And, part of it was a conscious decision. This medium is going away. How fast can we figure out something else? So over the next, I'm going to say 20, 25 months, it was continual downsizing. And downsizing in terms of space, in terms of infrastructure. We started splitting the business zones of responsibility because we couldn't agree on anything. And, when things are in a downturn, as I've told you before, I learned way more going down than I did going up. That's when you come alive. That's when you really start looking for out-of-the-box solutions. How do I, there was no way out of this. How can I prolong it? How can I affect it? How can I make it so it doesn't take me personally? And to me, one of my better business maneuvers was the company was going to die with cancer. There's no doubt about it. How can I separate my own personal wealth and what I've accumulated over the last 20 years and not let this company take me down with it? So I very carefully was separating those things, making sure certain debts that were encumbered to me were paid.
It's the corporate veil. I mean, this is the corporate veil. I mean, our economy, our whole capitalist society here, we're set up this way to protect individuals from the corporate problems,
100%.
right?
Yes.
And that you that is what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, and it got to the point in 2016. I mean, I ended up using $17,000 of my personal funds to put the corporation we'd had since 1988 through bankruptcy. And I was able to actually, as the only bidder on the courthouse steps, buy what was left from the company back. Now it was only mine, not shared with my brother. The company was buried legally and completely. We made agreements with the personally guaranteed notes, and I was able to start rebuilding. And I rebuilt in terms of some online sales and mainly by recovering some of the assets and the accounts. I was able to rebuild a nice little company. Again, we were down to 6 employees from the ashes of this once, company.
Yeah. So that's kind of a cool story, the whole kind of trying to fight back. And did your brother stick around during this part, or were you okay? So you had to solo this thing. So you've shown some real mettle, Brad. Like, I mean, to be fair, like, your dad's like, good luck, and your brother's like, good luck, and I'm sure they're good people, but you've just got this extra thing in you, man. Like, you kind of got this never die kind of.
Yeah.
Where do you get that?
I want to eat, I think, is the main thing. And I got to be honest, I feel I can see the bigger picture, and I could have jumped ship too. But I realized where I may be an able guy, entrepreneurial is in my blood. I do not have a college degree. So what am I going to do? I'm going to go hit the job market. Being in a family business for 23 years with no college degree, what am I going to do? Who's going to hire me at almost 50
how are you going to keep making that mortgage payment and all the private school, whatever the hell's going on, right?
I mean, how am I going to make that transition? I got a better chance going it alone than I do jumping into the job market,
Yeah, you can, yeah, right. I get that 1,000%. So you just did the math on that in your mind and said, I'll just take my chances here. I'll make my last stand.
Exactly. And I will milk every dollar out of what I'm doing while I look for something else.
And so you got to be really, like, this taught you resourcefulness and negotiate. Like you kind of did it in reverse, right? So you learned bootstrapping at the end of success.
Yes, exactly.
Instead of bootstrapping at the beginning.
I learned it at the end, and it was all about, in the end, monitoring that bank balance, and I can say to this day, I have never missed a payroll, and I've never bounced a check for any company I've ever been part of in 30 some years of entrepreneurialism. To me, that's the confidence. When you can pay your people, and you pay your people before you pay your other bills, they will be there for you. You can't make a payroll, things evaporate really fast at that point.
Yeah, that's huge, man. That's what's cool. So there's a little Phoenix story right there. So what happened next? You were kind of keeping this little thing. This thing got smaller and smaller, but you were keeping it alive and you kind of were making it limp along.
It was limping along. It was profitable. It was paying me, what I needed to cover my bills. And what happened is someone that actually used to work for me 20 some years before, Joy Genduza, who's the founder and CEO of Postcard Mania print company.
You said she used to work for you?
Yeah.
I didn't know this.
Yeah, actually, it was my dad. It was in the very early 90s. She got pregnant and was a single mom and had to leave.
Wow.
But she was our top salesperson, all right?
Yeah.
She's 2-3 years older than me. And she had in 98, she had started her own print marketing company, and she approached me in the beginning of 2017. And I knew that in my New Year's resolution in 2017, I'm like, okay, this I call it major liquidations, which was the new company, starting to come around, and I'm like,
well, you failed to mention she went before 2017, like she built this empire around this Postcards Mania print business, like, so she's a mogul in this space in that time frame.
One of the biggest in the country.
Yeah.
She calls me, I think it was early January, right after New Year's, and she's like, Brad, what are you doing? I said, I'm running this little business. I'm building it back. And she's like, is that what you want to be doing? And I'm like, I was just thinking about that. I don't know. You got something for me? What's your idea? And she went over to her house on Saturday, and she explained to me this technology they developed in their company, and she wanted to spin it off. And I asked her, I said, why me? And she's like, listen, I've known you for 27 years. What you did to survive that collapse of your product market and how you persisted through that, and you're still standing, you still have a nice house and you drive nice cars, and you're not living in a bus stop and you're not working at McDonald's or taking some telemarketing job. You are a survivor. And I have this little struggling seedling that they'd been working on actually for about 2 years, never got it past 6 figures in a year. And she's like, I'd like you to spin it off and run it. And, I'll give you.
It was kind of their in-house technology, right?
In-house technology.
They built it around in a world-class organization. So it was world-class. It was a world-class solution because it was built by one of the biggest players for what they do. So there's no doubt it was on point, but they weren't putting real resources into like making its own, like having its own life outside the company, right?
Well, they were trying. They had gone to a few trade shows, and it was encountering resistance because you're going to other printers that are her competiters.
Yeah. And they're already watching you. They're already watching you gobble up every,
Exactly. They didn't want to do it more.
They don't want to feed you more.
Man, and I'd be the face of it.
Yeah.
And she says, look, we're going to give you one of our best salespeople, and you two do it, And it was great that we were under the wing of this big company for a while, and she would cut, I didn't have to worry about the bank account. I was given a salary, not a live and vacation like a rich man salary, but I'll tell you straight up, 150 grand a year guaranteed. You make this thing work. And I'm like, it's a little less than I want, but she was giving me a pretty big equity stake. I can't complain. I'm going to get covered. If it works, I'll be great.
Totally. Yeah.
And
yeah,
immediately got to work. Remember, I'm coming from a physical products industry, and I'm transferring into a SaaS marketing service industry. And I have to say, and I've told her about this later, this is a big change. 27 years I'm selling physical products. Now I'm selling SaaS marketing services. And there was a
for those watching SaaS is software as a service. So the basically cloud-based software, basically selling software, which is very different than physical products.
Very different, but it aligned. I didn't finish saying, but when I was kind of creating this list of, I want to get into a new business, and it filled the boxes. I wanted something that was recurring revenue, something that couldn't be disrupted, something that could grow. It would stack, which like a SaaS business. And I didn't want to have to start from zero every month again, hawking DVDs or any physical products.
Yeah, because SaaS business, for those, is typically recurring revenue and those kinds of things, right? So this idea of, physical product and software, just a very different world. So how did you get up to speed? How did you get your confidence to do it? My take on it, because I was with you. We met up many times during your transition, and I want to give you my thoughts. You didn't try to fake it. You seemed like you were very on your sleeve about what a challenge it was. And what that did is it made people want to help you. Like, I remember wanting to help you. I remember wanting to because you were just very kind of transparent about it, which I don't know if you do that on purpose, but it's kind of one of your superpowers, by the way.
It is, and the transparency is key because I don't try to be something I'm not. I knew this was going to be a challenge. I know my strengths and I know my weaknesses, and I wasn't going to pretend this was something that was innate for me. It wasn't. I've always gravitated toward technology, so I knew that I could learn it. It's just how long was the runway going to be?
Yeah.
And
but at the end, by the end of the day, businesses buy business software, which is what you have. not for technology reasons. They buy them for business reasons. And that, as long as you, and matter of fact, twice tonight when I asked you to tell me about direct mail 2.0, and I was fishing for a kind of a technical answer, you gave me business answers. You gave me ROI answers. You gave, like, so your mind goes to the reason why people would buy it. They don't buy it for features and benefits, and they buy it for the business benefits, right?
Exactly. And it is a business to business product. So I quickly brought my, I guess, industry, or not industry because it wasn't in the industry, but business knowledge. I saw weaknesses in the existing product that Postcard Mania had built. I started getting development on those missing pieces, which, funny thing is Postcard Mania quickly adopted every feature set or benefit we built in. They incorporated in their own version. Our version of this product is now probably 2 or 3 echelons ahead of theirs, but because they're in this, they're a big company now. It's,
well, yeah, they didn't want to. I mean, they couldn't. I mean, it's very expensive to try to keep up with every version and iteration and feature function. At some point, they needed to let you run because they would slow you down. But in the early days, their feedback was probably invaluable in the early iterations.
Well, in fact, when I said I want to do this, this, and this, and I'd only been there 90 days, most execs were like, "No, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. It's too expensive. This, that," and I'm like. So part of it is being able to listen to what people are saying, but yet proceed anyway if you have a gut or you have information to the contrary. And every one of the products that they said wouldn't fly has absolutely flown and always doubled our revenue every time I added.
Because you were always looking at it from a business person's perspective as if you were going to buy it. Like it had, that's one of the advantages of you coming from the outside and not being too close to it. Like, you used to buy expensive things. You were a business, like you understand how business owners think, and you were like, no, it needs these things because that's what people want to buy it for. And it doesn't surprise me that they struggle with that because to them it was an internal technology solution, not a business purchasing. I get that.
Absolutely. And you know, I've found a new, I want to say, interest in life and entrepreneurialism. In my previous business, we were only providing the channel at which goods were distributed on. Now I'm creating products from nothing, and there's a pride in the development that it takes 6, 8, 10 months to develop a software product and bring it to market.
Version, or even a new version, even a new upgrade.
Exactly. And when you do it and it's a success, it's such a validation of what you decided to do. Luckily, I've not picked a bummer product yet. And honestly, I'll be the first to admit, I've listened to my salespeople and my support teams and what they say. These were not all of my own brainchild. I fully encompass the viewpoints and ideas of my team. You know, they're on the front lines. I'm not talking to the customers 24/7. They are,
So you've now, how many years now has it been since you?
3 years and 4 months full time. My transition period.
So I think your book's been stamped as a legitimate SaaS software CEO.
I would say. I mean, the fact that I've achieved, triple-digit growth for 2.5 years, 3 years in a row. And
quarter over quarter for the most part, year over year?
No, year over year.
Yep.
2016, I think they did $173,000 when it was within Postcard Mania. And this year, we will definitely finish north of 2 million.
Yeah.
So, that's almost 20 times growth in 3.5 years.
Yeah.
And what I consider the best accomplishment is achieving profitability even during COVID. 6 out of our last 8 months have been profitable. We're profitable year to date. We're paying back Joy's investment in terms of a monthly amortized loan payment at this point, and we're still being profitable. So we're generating cash. And I'm not afraid to say that the last 2 or 3 months, about 22% of revenue is dropping straight to the bottom line. So which is pretty on par for a good SaaS company,
That That's really great. That's really great. So many SaaS, that's really great. So many SaaS companies don't even make money, still struggle to figure out how to be profitable, make money. And how do you balance this profitability with growth? Like, there's always this trade-off. So many companies choose to not be profitable, especially in SaaS, so they can just keep pumping it into marketing and sales to keep grabbing more market share. Are you satisfied with the amount of market share that you're grabbing? Considering that you could be spending more?
It's a point that's hard to reconcile. And I'll say, the mandate from our majority shareholder, Joy, has been to get profitable. And I've told her many times, I can get profitable or I can grow faster. And she unequivocally is get profitable.
Smart woman.
It's eyes wide open kind of thing. We're profitable at the expense of some growth. We may not see triple digit growth maintaining this profitability. Could that position change? Maybe after I produce a year of profit, she'll be like, you know what? Go ahead, spend every freaking cent.
Yeah. Now that everybody's whole, maybe we flip the dial.
Yeah. So I'm showing that I can deliver whichever one is required of me. So I'm good either way. For me, it's the sense of accomplishment. Sure, I want to make more money and grow quicker. And part of it, my personal desire is, I'm 53 years old. I'd like this to be my last necessary entrepreneurial venture. I have been running teams and companies since I was 22. I even came into the last one as the CEO in training. I'm not going to say I'm burnt out. I like the accomplishment, but managing a team for 30 years, I'm getting to that point where I'm ready.
Yeah, you only get so many, in you, and there is the body and the mind. Like there's a certain amount of, I just turned 50, Brad, so I can say this, right? It is definitely kind of. How would I say it? Like I used to throw so much more caution to I would sacrifice my body and mind at will. Like I didn't care. Just it was all on the table, right? And we get in this age. It's like I want to start preserving a little bit. I want to like have a little. I want to have a little more gas in the tank to do fun things, right? Versus before I didn't care. I was just workaholic, like crazy.
And it's a responsibility not just to myself. I feel responsible to my team.
Yes.
And if I'm not giving 100%, how can I ask them to give 100%?
Right.
So
yeah.
And it'd be nice one day. I have never not worked other than the 2 years I went to college since I was 14. And even when I was taking this transition from my previous thing into this venture with Joy, I said, hey, can I take a couple months off? I've never not worked. She goes, what? Are you kidding? I need you yesterday. And I'm like, I have never not worked,
Yeah. That's great. Well, that's beautiful, man. I love how this is setting up for you, man. This is really setting up well. So as we kind of wrap up here, 2 questions for you. One, what do you see yourself doing in 10 years? And don't tell me just sitting around playing with grandkids and stuff. I'm like, what do you?
I'm already doing that. So I've got my grandchild.
No, like, what are you doing? All right, I'll back it down. What are you doing in 7 or 8 years? Because let's assume that this has been exited, okay? And 7 or 8, 9, 10 years. What do you what are you doing?
Honestly, I like entrepreneurial ventures. Do I want to live them 9 to 5 and be 100% responsible for their success or failure? That part of my life is coming to an end in the next 5 years.
Yeah.
At this exit, I would like to be a VC, an angel, advisor for something like an entrepreneur in residence for the Wave, where I can help others and impart my experience and knowledge and help guide someone else to success through my past failures and successes. That's what I truly like to do. In terms of if I need to produce an income, it'd be more on a passive through investments or real estate, that kind of thing. That would be
beautiful. I love it, man. That's man, I want that for you so bad. And you're already it's pretty almost already self-assured. I can see that. The next question would be, the spirit of this podcast and the mission of what I'm doing is this kind of idea of advice for aspiring and early entrepreneurs. So what's kind of the Brad Kugler, go-to advice that, or the, kind of the philosophy thing that you kind of go to if you were going to give advice to an aspiring entrepreneur, some young person who's kicking it around, like what do you usually zero in on if you had them one-on-one?
It's interesting you say that, because I had an entrepreneur come to me today with that exact question, and I wrote a bit of a diatribe, and I'll summarize it. You've got to have the passion for what you're doing first and foremost, because you're going to have to persist, and you're going to have to go through the mountain or around the mountain. It ain't going to be a cakewalk, no matter what you think it is. Your other thing is you've got to have a value proposition. You have to have something that people are going to be willing to pay for. And if it's a product or a service, how is it better, faster, cheaper than what's already on the market? If you can't figure out that and you don't have a passion, don't bother. You're going to spin your wheels, and you're going to have more losses than successes. You're going to have more losses than successes probably anyway, but it's with those things that you'll be able to kind of get over that hump,
Yeah. And how do you put that in like concrete terms, in terms of like, when you say better, faster, cheaper, like, is that like what we would call like a unique selling proposition or a differentiator?
Yeah, it's either one of those. If you think in your own mind you've got a widget or a better mousetrap or a service that you think is great, that's part of it. That's necessary. But you know what? Other people have to think it's great too. And you've got to have that value proposition.
And so it sounds like validation in there is what you're getting at too. Like
your markets, test. Talk to your customers. Do not sit in your ivory tower thinking you've got it. Obviously, a guy like Steve Jobs, when he came up with an iPhone or an iPad, which hadn't really existed yet, he hit a home run. That doesn't happen for everyone.
That's a good, it's almost a bad example, isn't it? Almost.
It's a horrible example, because you see what he did and you're like, I'm going to do that too. You don't hear about the 1,000 guys that tried something like that and it flopped. He had tens of thousands of the best people in the world behind him and hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yes.
Almost nobody has.
And anybody who's ever hit a home run like that will tell you, publicly or privately, that luck was a big factor. And so you got to take luck off to what you're saying a little bit is you got to take luck off the table with your own validation, right?
Yes. You've got to validate. You've got to prove that you have something that people want. They're going to part with their money in.
Last question: when you took over Direct Mail 2.0, it was struggling. Like it had barely 100,000. It was internal. It maybe had a few external clients. Like it almost, the signals were almost that it wasn't going to be successful.
I looked at it very hard when I asked Joy, where is this business at? It was pretty much almost a complete startup. I mean, you're talking about $10,000 a month in revenue, losing money, double its sales, and it had a product and it had about a dozen customers.
So that's what I'm saying is that so just to pause right there, the signals are not good. And then also the validation, there wasn't that much validation. We know there was do you remember when, I know you just believe like all entrepreneurs, you just jumped in and you said, we're going to make this happen. But, why were you able, why didn't it suffer the same fate of so many other products that were built before validation was really established?
For me, and this is where my own internal drive came in, I was also talking, Steve Anderson of Autoloop.
Yeah.
So him and I, he had a product business called Live Water Sports, this funky new paddleboard. And he was sort of courting me a bit to come in and do that, but this thing with Joy checked those boxes. It was recurring revenue. It was a cloud-based technology. It was a disruptor rather than a disruptee. And I'm like, I can make this work. I can make this work. They did have
that the validation was happening. The validation was happening inside of the company that, she had this really massively successful company. So if it was working for her, I guess it would go to say it should work for others.
Exactly. And that was the validation that I needed. And it was by far from a raging success. I consider it still in prototype mode, development mode. And I'm like, if they can achieve $100,000 in sales from a product that's 60% of the way there, I can take it the rest of the way. I mean, I've seen, you've seen the startups in the wave. Some of them have zero revenue and people get behind, So
that's right.
This one was already past that. It was off the starting
Right. Right. It was a little clunky, but you were like, I can do something with this.
Yeah.
Well, Brad, man, this has been an awesome interview. I'm so glad we could get this recorded, and hopefully you can play this for, your family and children. Hopefully this will live the last of time, and this will be your story memorialized forever. Because you came and spoke to my class about a year or two ago, and you told this in detail. And that's one of the exciting things about doing this podcast. I can record it for it's going to be forever on the YouTubes. Yeah.
I definitely will. My son's graduating college and he's starting to ask me about business and things.
He's like,
I'll give it a watch.
Yeah. Watch this. Here's Dad's story. Come back and we'll talk about it. But no, man, this is great. And thanks for indulging me on this. Is one of those things that it's just great for some young people to hear that what it's like to be at the top of the mountain, financially and success and all those things. And then to be able to know that dark clouds can form, and you need to pay attention to those dark. You've got to take serious the storm, right? And then if you do get caught in the storm, like how do you fight your way out of it, right? And then how do you create such a reputation that you get a phone call like you got from a Joy, right?
Exactly.
None of this came easy. That's my favorite part about your story.
It's true. When businesses go under, it can be very messy. I mean, you've heard the Florida Spine Institute closure was a complete disaster,
Yeah, exactly. So you kind of sidestepped all that. And that was what's really cool is Joy kind of noticed all that. She was like, you know what? You survived all of that and you're still standing and you never sold out and you just kind of that you're the kind of guy DNA that I need. You're the kind of person that we need to take this. I trust a person like that.
That was exactly it. And I wouldn't do it any other way, but I didn't even see at the time that would be a benefit of this,
Of course not. At no point did you think you were resume building.
Yeah, not at all. I thought it was resume burning, actually,
You're resume burning. Well, good, man. Hey, it's a blessing to have you. Thank you so much for coming on. I can't wait to get this published, and thanks for being a friend over the years and not kicking me out of your office that day. And actually,
that's not how I roll, So.
All right, Brad. Hey, have a good night and enjoy your family, and we'll be talking soon.
Excellent, man. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, my friend. Okay. Bye-bye.